Our breaking news this evening is the identity of the man
who is accused of removing classified material from a government facility.
It's a disaster.
Allies questioning whether the United States can be trusted
with their secrets.
The FBI has arrested a suspect in the worst leak of secret US intelligence documents in years.
Chelsea Manning, reality winner, Daniel Hale, and Edward Snowden. These are the names of people who gained notoriety for exposing US government agencies for their shady practices. Despite their vastly different circumstances, all four people maintain their move was one of activism, driven by a desire to protect their fellow Americans. In April of 2023, a new name joins the list, seemingly by accident. This new name wasn't an activist, nor was there malicious intent. Which raises the question, how did a 21-year-old find himself in handcuffs, listed amongst enemies of the state? A brief prerequisite for those who don't know. Edward Snowden fled the USA in 2013 after leaking highly classified information from the NSA. He traveled to Hong Kong to provide 3 journalists with near 200,000 top-secret documents, all of which were about the US government's unauthorized surveillance of American citizens.
Big Brother is coming to get you.
He saw himself as a whistleblower. The US government disagreed. They considered him a traitor, in violation of the Espionage Act. Snowden was charged with 3 felonies, each count earning him 10 years in prison, for a total of 30 years. But Snowden didn't spend a single minute in jail, fleeing to Russia where he was granted temporary asylum. The US government sought his extradition, but Russia refused. After multiple extensions on his refuge, Snowden was granted permanent residency in 2020. Is he a criminal or a hero? It depends who you ask. In my opinion, risking your life revolting against a government who are compromising the privacy of their citizens is pretty altruistic. But this video isn't about Edward. This video is about Jack. Jack Douglas Teixeira, a 21-year-old man born and raised in North Dighton, Massachusetts. His mother worked for a non-profit supporting veterans, while his stepfather and stepbrother worked at a military base in Cape Cod. The patriotism was inescapable. Teixeira was predestined to serve his nation. Straight out of high school, he joined the US Air National Guard, and just 3 years later, he was promoted to Airman First Class. Many US military personnel in technology positions, even those in relatively low rank, are entrusted with access to classified information. As part of his job, Teixeira held a top-secret security clearance. And in the hierarchy of clearance, top means the top. He had access to it all. That level of clearance typically pulls in a starting salary of $100,000. A 6-figure salary before you're even allowed to buy alcohol is insane. Your life is made. You'd have to be a very silly boy to fuck that up. Jack was a very silly boy. On the 14th of April 2023, Teixeira was arrested on suspicion of violating the Espionage Act of America. The Espionage Act is a law that prohibits the sharing of information that could harm America's war efforts. When someone violates this act, we expect their motive to match the seriousness of the anticipated punishment. They're either acting as a foreign agent, or they're driven by their moral compass. For instance, Snowden's motive was to protect the American people from the misuse of their personal data, but he faced the possibility of 30 years in prison or a lifetime in Russia without parole. The punishment aligns with the gravity of the crime, so the motive must be significant enough to warrant such consequences. Teixeira understood this, but his desire to be regarded highly by peers led him astray. While Snowden carefully released his documents to journalists as part of a calculated strategy, Teixeira casually shared them with teenagers in a gaming chat room. War Thunder, a game renowned for its immersive portrayal of warfare. placing players in the shoes of fighter pilots and tank commanders. Like any hobby, if you can call war a hobby, there's always individuals who exhibit an excessive passion, bringing an air of snobbery or a constant need to outdo others within the community. War Thunder's community is no exception. Devoted fans frequently engage in heated debates about the authenticity of military vehicles depicted in-game. The "I'm right, you're wrong" mentality runs rampant, leading some players who possess real-life security clearances to play their trump card. When disputes over the American F-16 jets ignited on the War Thunder forums, one user leaked classified materials, hoping to win the argument. A moderator warned that War Thunder is just a game.
It's only a game.
Probably not worth going to federal prison for. And yet military documents have been leaked by players at least 7 times. Details about American, Chinese, British, and French military equipment have all appeared in the last few years. The leaked documents are at lower levels of classification, but classified means classified. Anton Yudintsev, War Thunder CEO, made a statement. Our players are very passionate about War Thunder and military vehicles. Sometimes they're too passionate. Our policy is and was always clear. We'll never make changes to the game based on documents without a clear and legal source. All documents have since been taken down from the forum. Defense consultant Steven Zaloga stated, "Tank manuals will be classified at various levels, even though not a lot of information in it is especially sensitive." Put simply, those leaks were just manuals for tanks.
You're welcome.
In Jack's environment, this behavior of leaking wasn't just accepted, it was praised. His passion for war, coupled with a desire to be deemed reputable or impressive by war-loving peers, was enough for the young man to flaunt his own clearance. Why then are we talking about Jack and not the 7 other cases of leaked documents on War Thunder's servers? September 5th, 2022 marked Jack's first attempt at gaining his peers' respect. In a discussion about the war in Ukraine, Jack claimed he saw a Pentagon report saying that 1/3 of the force is being used to invade. It failed to impress. Hearsay wasn't enough to become one of the boys. 3 days later, he posted a report on Russia's naval landing near Mariupol. Real classified documents that weren't just generic military manuals. He gained his first bit of respect, and boy did it feel good. Seemingly the only person both willing and able to post top-secret updates regularly, Jack became a reporter for his international community of war enthusiasts. Initially posting the sensitive information as paragraphs of text, around January 2023, Jack explained in a conversation that transcribing text in the workplace was becoming too risky. That kind of awareness usually leads to reform. But instead, Jack took the documents home, where he could photograph them. His workflow became much more efficient, allowing him to report more documents at a faster rate, dumping sensitive information ranging from analysis of the ongoing Russian-Ukraine war to the UAE's inventory of missiles. The documents are essentially public information at this point, but also very much not. While they're fairly easy to find, reading through the criminal docket for the case against Jack, I found this. Whoever copies, takes, makes, or obtains, or attempts to copy, take, make, or obtain any sketch, photograph, photographic negative, blueprint, plan, map, model, instrument, appliance, document, writing, or note of anything connected with the national defense shall be fined or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both. Legislators really have a way with words. So this video doesn't actually show the leaked documents, but I've gone through and picked out some just to give you an idea of how severe Jack's leaks were. If you're itching to see the actual documents yourself, I suggest starting your search with Reddit. The most notable document is one assessing the combat sustainability of the Russian-Ukraine war, containing shocking statistics about citizen casualties, as well as numbering the amount of tanks, jets, and weaponry each nation has. A series of topographic tactical maps for Bakhmut and its surrounding areas. Central to a lot of the conflict in the ongoing war These maps detail Russian advancements in the area, while also predicting future movements. Reports of a Russian social media manipulation tool named Fabrica, which utilizes a few 100,000 bots in order to manipulate the information environment online. These bots aren't the ones you see in comment sections promoting their dodgy links. These bots are rarely detected, discreetly liking, subscribing, and generally influencing algorithms to push what it wants you to see on your feed. How about sending a couple bots my way? Satellite imagery of a Spetsnaz motor pool in southwestern Russia. The Washington Post was permitted to publish this, presumably because it shows Russia in a bad light. The images were taken a year apart, showing a depleted force following its return from Ukraine. That's a fraction of what's contained in the Russia-Ukraine folder. There's a whole other folder of general investigations and reports. To mention a few headings: Congo destabilization plot, Chinese cyber attacks, weakening Bolivia, Northern Ireland agreement, and reports on a certain terrorist group. Hard to see Jack getting off lightly, given the range of sensitive information he's bled from his country. Seems like an open and shut case. But it's not shut just yet. The following is paraphrased information from the court case docket. The FBI interviewed user 1 of social media platform 1. Let's call him Bob. And we know from other sources the platform is Discord. Bob lets the FBI know that someone started posting classified information on Discord in a specific server alluded to as Server 1. The server's real name was Thugshaker Central, a server where mostly teenagers played games, posted racist memes, talked about guns, and discussed the war in Ukraine. According to Bob, one of the documents posted describes intimate details of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, including troop movements and civilian fatalities. The validity of this stuff is always questionable, but in this case it was confirmed by classification authorities. The document was of highest classification and is described reasonably could be expected to cause exceptionally grave damage to the national security. Bob informed the FBI that Jack straight up revealed his name, his home state, and that he was in the US Air National Guard. He doxed himself. He leaked hundreds of top-secret documents to strangers, then doxed himself. With Bob's tale of events, the FBI asked Discord for the chat records, and Discord complied. Another government agency, one that can monitor searches conducted on classified networks, found, on April 6, 2023, Teixeira used his government computer to search classified intelligence reports for the word leak. It's believed that Teixeira was searching for classified reports regarding the identity of the individual who transmitted classified national defense information. To summarize, the guy signed a lifetime non-disclosure agreement, leaked hundreds of top-secret documents to teenage strangers, doxed himself, then essentially asked the government if they suspected him. If they didn't before, they sure as fuck do now. Stockpiling weapons just before his arrest, made threats and researched shootings, war, weapons, and conspiracy theories. It's easy to dismiss headlines like these as sensational. After all, they've got to be punchy to pull in an audience. But digging beneath the surface, these articles flag some real concerns. As the case progresses, more information is revealed. Most recently, near 10,000 messages between Jack and his peers, most of which paint a bleak picture of the type of person he is.
And have a lot of fun.
The FBI and other three-letter agencies contact these unhinged, mentally ill kids and convince them to do mass shootings. Jack wrote that after a gunman killed 3 people at a mall in Indiana. Convinced that the increase of mass shootings of late is all part of a secret plot to make people vote for gun control. That's a dangerous narrative to spread when it's unsubstantiated, even more so when it's contradicted by his own social media posts. In one, prosecutors say Teixeira expressed a desire to kill a ton of people and cull the weak-minded. In another, he described an assassination van that could be used to cruise around killing people, along with reports that he solicited advice on firing an AR-style rifle out of an SUV in a crowded urban or suburban environment. Incredibly violent. But it also screams of unintelligence, or at least inconsistent values. In other words, you think the government is the direct cause of mass shootings, but you're contemplating one of your own as a free-thinking individual. Does that make sense? To note, the messages do not explicitly indicate that he was planning acts of violence. And sure, actions speak louder than words. There is, of course, more. ISIS was an organization started by Turkey, Israel, and the US. They needed to destabilize the Middle East somehow, and all had enemies. How do you do that? Make a terror organization and fund the shit out of it. He seems to be right-leaning, but then accuses Republicans of funding terrorist organizations and starting 20-year-long wars. Both parties drink the same blood, he says. Both have called drone strikes on hospitals. LOL. One Discord user who often communicated with Teixeira told the Times that in text messages that Jack claimed to have been stockpiling weapons and military gear, also saying the airman had discussed various ambitions, including plotting to confront protesters during the 2024 presidential campaign, and modifying vehicles that could be outfitted with weapons. I think analysing mass shootings is cool and fun, says Jack. Cool and fun. Sounds like a line from a children's book. We all know someone who rambles on saying the most outrageous stuff just to induce a reaction from others. It's not acceptable, but it does happen. Typically in those younger than 25, because the prefrontal cortex hasn't quite kicked in yet. In high school, when, let's say, Johnny makes a joke about the disabled kid in his class, it's fucked up. Feelings are hurt, but we move on. It's a lot different when Johnny has top-level military clearance, 16 guns in his bedroom, and hundreds of teenagers relishing every post he makes on the internet. A lot more than feelings are at risk. Jack's ramblings gave him the attention he so desperately craved. Months before his first leak, Jack was asked if he could post any document regarding a particular subject. His response, "If I want to go to jail for the rest of my life, then yeah." Starting out sensible, Jack was aware of the consequences, but he was tempted beyond his senses. The server he leaked to had about 600 members from 25 countries. It was only a matter of time before the documents made their way outside his Discord groups. When they did, Jack announced he would no longer be posting updates on Ukraine. Playing it cool, he announced his retirement from reporting. "I don't want to cover the war anymore. It burned me out a lot," he told his audience of teenagers. In reality, the walls were closing in, and he was trying desperately to escape them. Prosecutors claim he was covering his tracks. Hard to argue when many of Teixeira's recent messages were deleted from the server shortly before his arrest. Not to mention the smashed electronics that feds found in his dumpster. So what's Jack's future look like? To get a good idea of what it holds, we need to look back at our list of names. Manning was sentenced to 35 years, commuted down after serving 7. Winner was sentenced to 5 years. Hale got 4 years, and Snowden was charged with 30. The sentences vary based on severity and intent. As we've learnt, Jack's leaks were severe, and you would imagine his lack of intent would reduce the severity, and subsequently his sentence, but not quite. In Reality Winner's case, a plea deal was agreed upon. If the case had gone to trial, documents used in evidence would become public information. To avoid this, she accepted a lesser sentence, and the leaked documents retained some integrity. See, in cases of whistleblowing, sensitive information irrelevant to the whistleblower's cause can be redacted. Jack's lack of intent means everything he's leaked is already out there, in full, for everyone to read, with nothing redacted. No intent, likely means no plea deal. The 2 charges against him carry a maximum penalty of 10 years. Jack's careless and self-serving actions are predicted to earn him 15 years in jail. I expect to see an example made of him, to show any up-and-coming government officials that the NDA they sign is no joke. But is a non-disclosure agreement enough? Out of all the articles I've read and research I've done, it's all about the young man who betrayed the country he promised to serve, which is understandable. But nearly no articles mention the US government's responsibility in vetting and monitoring their staff who have access to top secret documents. Jack isn't the only careless one in this story. Unless government bodies tighten their security measures, there will be more leaks, and more names added to the list. Suits me. I'll get to make another video. If that's something you want to see, you should consider subscribing. And if you want an update on Jack's case when the verdict is in, leave a like to let me know. Thanks for watching.